2021 Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. And I will just say that our mayor is not in town and I am Mayor Pro Tem, so I will be facilitating this evening's meeting. The city is conducting its public meetings remotely to prevent the spread of COVID. We have provided options for the public to attend through telephone, internet, and other means of remote access, and also provided the ability for persons attending the meeting, not in person, to hear each other at the same time. So with that, we will have our Pledge of Allegiance. If you would put up the flag and if everyone would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have a printed agenda? Are there any modifications to the agenda or a motion to approve?
Mayor Pro Tem, I would make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, we will move on to our first citizens comments section. And this public comment section, the one at the beginning of our meeting, is limited to items on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. As a reminder, people making comments need to be respectful, no inappropriate language, and no personal attacks. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council, please raise your hand. There's a raise your hand feature in Zoom, or wave wildly, and the city clerk will acknowledge you and bring you over into our meeting and allow you to give your testimony. I also believe that if you're listening via the phone, if you press *9, that also indicates to the clerk that you would like to speak. Clerk Reinerson, is there anyone who is wishing to address council for the first public comment period?
I see no raised hands at this time.
Okay, I will ask again, if anyone wishes to address the council for the first public comment period, please acknowledge by raising your hand, and Clerk Reinerson will bring you into the meeting for testimony. Is there still no one wishing to speak?
Correct. I still see no hands.
Okay, with that, we will move on and remind everyone that there is a second public comment period at the end of our meeting. So now we are to our consent agenda. Are there any modifications to the consent agenda or a motion to approve? Councilman Rose-Pepe?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Rose-Pepe and a second by Councilman Diener to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? The consent agenda is approved as presented. I believe we have one presentation this evening, and it is on the annual Jaylard Public Records Request Annual Report. And I believe that is you, Clerk Reinerson.
It is. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. So give me just a minute and I'm going to share my screen. Share my screen first. this over. I'm getting there. Okay, so does that look like a full mode screen to you guys? Can you guys see the presentation? Let me move this because I think you guys can see this as well, right? Okay, how's that?
Good.
Okay. Okay, so this presentation is to update the council and the public of what the clerk's office reported to the state. In 2018 was our first reporting year required by state statute. That the city of Port Orchard needs to develop a report based on criteria set by the state that needs to be submitted to the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee, which is known as the Jaylard Report. Okay, why isn't it? Okay. So this report, like I said, is required by the state. And the threshold for this report is any agency in the state of Washington that has funds of $100,000 or more dedicated or used to respond to public records requests is required to submit the report based on the criteria set by the state. So just for public knowledge, what is a public record? A public record includes any writing containing information relating to the conduct of government or any performance of any governmental or proprietary function that is prepared, owned, used, or retained by any state or local agency, regardless of the physical form or characteristics. And that is per the Public Records Act, RCW 4256.010, subsection 3. That's the actual definition. So there are a number of metrics is what the report calls for. And I'll go through and summarize the matrix that we are required to report. So for the city of Port Orchard, the number of requests that we received for 2020 was 351. Of those total numbers of requests closed, we closed out 349 of those public records requests, or 99% of them. Total number of requests closed within 5 business days was 235, which is 67%. And then the total number of requests that are abandoned was 9, which is 3%. And abandoned means that they put in a public records request. We gathered up the records, either told them the price or told them that it was ready to receive these records, and we received no response within 30 days. So by state statute, we can consider it abandoned and close out the request. Another criteria that we're required to report is what type of documents are we denying the public, or what are we seeking clarification on? And so the basic routine documents or information that we withhold or deny the public is utility customer information. So the public does not have the right to know what the utility customer's personal information is, as well as their full utility usage bill. Social security numbers, driver's license numbers, banking information, attorney-client privilege documents and information, payroll and personnel files, pending investigations, and then minors and victims' personal information. Those are typically found on police reports. So those are just the most common information that we withhold from the public. Clarifications, typically when we get public records requests and they say, I want any and all, we seek clarification to remind them when they say that they want any and all that relates to a particular address. We let them know that, hey, that includes court records, police documents, utility bills. Are those type of things that you're looking for? Most of the time they'll say no. What they're looking for is like building permits, maps, those type of things. And then we also let them know that we seek clarification when they do want any and all related to a particular topic. We let them know that we have emails and we provide them some search terms based on their request, and we seek clarification from that. So that's another set of criteria that the state wants to know. They also want to know what type of requesters do we get. So these are pretty common. We get requests from the citizens, we get requests from attorneys, other governmental agencies, the media, businesses, current and former employees, inmates, real estate agents, and research firms. Typically, the research firms are looking for if there's any contaminants in the property that we're aware of. They're doing their due diligence to figure out if that's a good investment for them to purchase. So they would just kind of want to know the history of the property. The other thing that we're required to report is what is the staff time and the cost associated with gathering the records, reviewing them, redacting them, providing them. So this, for 2020, the city of Port Orchard spent 610 hours gathering and providing records to requesters. That estimated staff cost is $35,186. That we are allowed to recoup some of the cost. Anything that has not already been scanned and it is specifically to that request, we can charge them 10 cents per scan. Most of our documents are in digital form, so we just don't recoup most of that cost. We do have some requesters that still want us to put it on a CD or a USB drive, and we can get actual costs for those. And then paper copies. Every now and again, we have somebody that wants paper copies. We are also required to report what our external costs are. So what how much money we spend on our attorney, archiving programs, how much do you spend on records management, any other miscellaneous softwares. And so to break that down, some of our external costs, we have to archive our emails, which is a little over 6,800. We have a website, social media archiver, it's over 3,500. Text message archiver, 6,600. The public records request software that allows the public to put in a request and track it for us and as well as themselves, and to receive the documents through that system is a little over 4,000. And then the records management software, which is Laserfish, is about 1,500. And then we also have a program that allows us to convert emails into a better format for the public. And these are all annual costs. And then the staff and attorney cost breakdown, the staff managing request was reported earlier, which is $35,186. And then staff managing records, we estimated it's about $1,831. What that includes is staff going through and pulling records that have met the retention according to the state. And then I review them. It's them creating files and managing them. And then the attorney costs at $2,431. So a total of for 2020 costs associated with managing and responding and providing public records requests is $62,174.49. Although our jurisdiction is not required to report this on an annual basis because we have not hit that $100,000 threshold, I believe it's important that we report to the state what information they're gathering. It's important for the state to understand what type of requesters we get, how often we are spending on the request, what the cost is, so that way they have a better decision if there needs to be any changes to the law that needs to be made based on those. And then I just put this slide together to let you know what the requests over the years have been. Our police department joined our public records request system in 2020. Before that, they kept track of their own requests. So I just kept it consistent and broke them out. So as you can see in 2017, public records requests that were not police related, we received 84. And then to date, we've received 123. Police department 2017 had 244 public records requests, and today they're at 325. In all honesty, there's no rhyme or reason as to why there's an increase and a decrease of public disclosure requests. It just depends on what's happening in the city and how interested the public is in receiving their records. It could also be driven by the market and people doing their due diligence when they purchase homes. So it's just a number of reasons why they go up and down. So that's my report for you guys. Is there any questions? Oh, before I open it up for questions, I just want to let you know that they did release the 2020 report statewide, and I will be sending that email to you guys out by the end of this week, and it will give you our numbers as well as every jurisdiction that reported and what they reported as well. So you can see what type of requesters that they typically get, how much time they've spent, what their dollar thresholds are. And when I looked at the report before this meeting, we're pretty low. I mean, dollar wise and request. I mean, City of Seattle, I think they get 15,000 requests a year. And then I think Lakewood gets, over 2,000. So we're pretty small in retrospect. So with that, is there any questions that I can answer for the council?
Mr. Chang?
Randy, thank you for the report. It's very interesting. Has the city ever reached the 100,000 threshold? And if so, how different would the report be? How much more? It sounds like you're doing all that they've asked for. What else would you have to do if we reach that threshold?
If we reach the threshold, nothing. It's the exact same information, same questions. So in the next couple of years, when we get a little bit closer to that 100,000, we'll be working with finance department to try and incorporate it as part of our timesheets. Right now, we're just not there. One, staff wise to monitor it and to get it set up that way, and two, just the dollar threshold isn't there. But most of the dollar amounts are just estimates. We had a practice before, and maybe that's why 2017 numbers are lower, is because, we only tracked them if they reference the RCW 4256, right? I want a public records request, but technically anybody can put in a public records request and verbally, in writing, in an email, whatever, and that is a request. And so I've met with all the departments, and I think they have a better understanding that we need to start sending these people to the portal or for a defined process, so that way we can track these and see if we have an overwhelming amount of requests that we need to rededicate resources to. So I think we've gotten better and better, and we don't, somebody puts in a request that says, hey, I want a copy of this ordinance. We're not going to make them go through the portal, put it in, and then update it. We just simply email it, and then staff later will input it into the portal, so that way we can track it.
Thank you. Councilman Diener, and then Councilman Rosa Pepe.
Randy, thank you for the presentation. It's very informative, and it's great that you provide the numbers to the state, because I think they need to see it. So I have two questions. Is there an active scanning program for example, for permits that are going into digital formats?
Nick might be able to answer that question, but it's my understanding that the clerk's office, finance, and DCD, they pretty much scan every single document that comes in. And they're pretty much up to date with their electronic documents. So all of their permits are scanned, is my understanding, and or coming through their permit software program. So it's already scanned. But I do believe a few years ago, they had an intern scan all of their older permits.
That's what I was curious about, was the older permits. Okay.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, great. And then my next question is, I know that in the years leading up, certainly leading up to the pandemic, the years before, there was a lot of push for PDR reform across the state because it was being abused in certain ways. Do you have anything to advise on that front, or are we comfortable with current PDR legislation, or is there something on the burner that we should get behind?
My position is there's always going to be a handful of people that just want to be different. No matter what education, whatever you make available to them, no matter how you treat them, that's just part of their personality, and you can't change it. And to change laws for that's less amount of people, I don't think makes sense. And I think that's why this report came out, is because we kept hearing from a lot of jurisdictions, hey, we have a lot of people that are just, they're harassing us and we just can't keep up. And I think the bigger city you are, the more you're going to have. I think our city has been very fortunate that we don't have somebody that is what we call harassing or frequent requester in the aspect of they're just putting it in just to putting it in. My experience with the city of Port Orchard's requests, they're legitimate. They have a right, they have a need for those, and that's why they're requesting them. Some jurisdictions, and don't get me wrong, we've had one or two that had put in, a very vague request, and when we push back, they withdraw it and say it's either too confusing or they never respond. We get one or two a year, but fortunately for us, we haven't been in a position where it wasn't good for us. But I haven't experienced that. I know many other cities have. Like I said, I think it's just based on the level of education and training that that jurisdiction has when it relates to public records requests.
And to
Did you have go ahead,
Sorry.
Charlie.
Apologies. Just to add to that, we understand ADBC to have on its legislative agenda an issue pertaining to the misuse of the provisions for profit. There's been a flurry of litigation this last year involving a handful of folks, one of whom we learned made approximately $600,000 in 1 year in penalties. And that's obviously an abuse of the system. That's not an individual looking for records, looking for profit. So we understand AWC is trying to craft something associated with that. But as Brandy mentioned, that's a handful of folks who have figured out how to game the system. And thankfully, Port Orchard has not yet been in their radar. So crafting a solution to address those targeted issues while still preserving the right of the mass public to access records is understandably difficult. But they're working on it, hopefully.
All right, thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Thank you. Councilman Rosa Pepe.
And just a couple quick questions, actually just one question. And thank you very much, Brandy, for putting this together. I believe when we got Laserfish, that was one of the reasons was to get everything documented and allow us a quicker method of responding to public records requests. Is there anything out there that you found talking to the other cities that would also increase our ability to respond to public records requests in a timelier manner, or we're happy with what we got? I mean, looking at the statistics, that's pretty good turnaround.
I mean, from my perspective, there just isn't anything. I think Laserfish is the most recent and state-of-the-art public disclosure request records management system out there, and we have it, and it's a great tool and for internal and external. I just can't think of anything that would be a tool other than putting certain documents just available to the public at all times, but it does, there's confidential information, so you're not going to get away from those, such as police reports, emails. Outside of those two things, I think we're doing pretty good in making everything that we can available to the public.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. That was, again, compliments on the report. I think it was informative for all of us. If you want to quit sharing your screen, we will move on to our business items. Thank you. And our first business item today is adoption of an ordinance amending the Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 20.170, flood damage prevention. And Mr. Bond, I believe this is your item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and good evening, members of council. The city's flood damage prevention code in chapter 20.170 of the Port Orchard Municipal Code has not been updated in several years and is inconsistent with certain state and federal requirements and references, as well as having some inconsistencies with more recently updated sections of the Port Orchard Municipal Code in Title 20. DCD staff and the city attorney worked with the Department of Ecology's floodplain code advisor to revise this section of the city's code to resolve these issues and to strengthen the requirements for floodplain management and prevention of flood damage. One key change proposed in the ordinance is the adoption of updated flood zone maps from 2017, which replaces older 2010 firm maps. Additionally, the code is now consistent with the updated FEMA flood map references and with the city's recently adopted Shoreline Master Program recommendations regarding elevation as protection against shoreline flooding. The Planning Commission held a public hearing and has reviewed the draft ordinance at its October 18th, 2021 meeting and voted to recommend approval of the amendments as presented. The staff recommendation is to approve an ordinance amending 20.170 of the Port Orchard Municipal Code to update the city's flood damage prevention code as presented.
Thank you. Council, what's your pleasure?
Madam Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code 20.170 to update the city's flood damage prevention code as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item?
I'll just add that I think the motion or the staff report speaks for itself, and I would thank staff for moving this along pretty quickly. We really don't have a choice. When you look at the alternatives, neither of those alternatives are very pretty. So thanks to staff for moving this along.
The other thing I would say to staff is when I read this and I read the ordinance and then I read the red line version, and my goodness, there were a lot of red lines in there. So a lot of work went into this document that we have in front of us tonight. A lot of, I'm assuming, consideration and discussion went in. So appreciate the work your staff did, Nick.
And I don't know if anybody's looked at the versions of the maps that were referenced, but the new version, it's much improved over the older version in terms of looking at the FEMA maps.
Is there any further discussion? If not, we will move this to a vote. There is a motion on the floor that has been seconded to adopt an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code 20.170 to update the city's flood damage prevention code as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? So the motion passes with unanimous consent. Our next business item is also an item for Mr. Bond, and this is adoption of a resolution ratifying the 2021 amendments to the Kitsap countywide planning policies.
Yes, thank you. Countywide planning policies are required for each county that is required to plan under the State Growth Management Act. The countywide planning policies are reviewed and amended at least every 5 years. In 2020 and 2021, the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council updated Kitsap County's countywide planning policies for consistency with Vision 2050. The multi-county planning policies prepared by Puget Sound Regional Council. Updates to the countywide planning policies were also made to ensure consistency with changes in state law that have occurred since the countywide planning policies were last updated in 2015. Kitsap County approved the amended countywide planning policies in Ordinance 601-2021 on October 11th, 2021, and forwarded the countywide planning policy amendments to the Kitsap County cities for ratification. The countywide planning policy amendments will become effective upon ratification by at least 3 of the cities. The staff recommendation is to approve a resolution ratifying the 2021 amendments to the countywide planning policies. And I'll just add, we discussed this at work study a couple of weeks ago, and I just wanted to reiterate my thanks to Councilmember Ashby, Mayor Patanzu, Councilmember Clausen, and Jay Rosapepe for all the work that you put in on this at the KRCC level. And I believe that Paulsbo has already ratified this, and so we will be the second city, and Bremerton is planning on taking this up later this month, which should make the countywide planning policies effective, assuming that they pass here tonight. So thank you.
What I'm going to add to that is at our work study last month, where these were reviewed again by council, there were questions about the process at KRCC or the ratification at the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council. That action was taken in July. And so we had in your packet the minutes from that meeting. I know that Councilman Diener had some specific questions, and so we provided the minutes for you so that you could see the discussion that happened at the board level at KRCC. So I believe Mr. Bond or myself would be happy to answer any questions, and we are also looking for a motion to ratify the 2021 amendments to the countywide planning policies. Councilman Lucarelli.
I move to adopt a resolution ratifying the 2021 amendments to the countywide planning policies.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Councilman Rose Pepe.
Just a quick thank you to the staff, Nick, your team for getting this completed in not only a timely manner, but also as diligent as the work has been getting this done, because it's almost like herding cats with KRCC and the other folks that are involved. So much appreciated, Nick.
Councilman Diener.
My questions have been answered. I look forward to the policies that reference equity, and I look forward to seeing how those findings are made for equity and some of the decisions that are made. And then for people who are attending tonight's meeting, the importance of this is such that we need a valid comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan to be valid amongst many things, but particularly here, needs to be consistent with the countywide planning policies. And once we have that, then we are eligible for a pipeline of transportation dollars. And so that's generally what makes most people play the game with comprehensive planning, is getting transportation dollars. So that's the importance of this.
The other thing that we'll talk about a little bit later, or at least in my KRCC report, is this also lays the foundation for the population and employment distribution numbers. There are some new sections in here. The one section on centers was totally rewritten, and it is what you were alluding to, Scott. It very much transportation dollars will support centers in the corridors that serve them. That's the intent of this. So and again, it was a very robust discussion through the entire process at KRCC. And as you mentioned, all of the community development directors worked very hard to get this compatible for all of the jurisdictions, something that every jurisdiction could work with, because we are all unique and we all want to do things a little differently. And we believe this document will allow all of us to manage our cities the way we want our cities managed and the county managed, but do it in a cooperative manner. So is there any further discussion? If not, we will vote on approving the resolution to ratify the 2021 amendments to the countywide planning policies. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, Port Orchard has ratified the countywide planning policies. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate that. Next on our agenda, it is Mr. Bond again. And this is to adopt a resolution approving a contract with Transportation Solutions, Inc. to update the transportation element of the comprehensive plan and documenting the procurement procedures. Go ahead, Nick.
All right. On September 17th, 2021, pursuant to RCW 3904-155, the city's Department of Community Development established a list of qualified contractors from the MRSC 2021 consultant roster for comprehensive planning and travel demand modeling. After staff reviewed, scored, and ranked the qualifications of the 3 consultants selected from the roster, The DCD awarded the contract or selected the highest ranking firm, Transportation Solutions, Inc. DCD staff then met with TSI to discuss, clarify, and develop the project understanding. On October 29th, 2021, the city received a defined scope of work, budget, and project timeline for the project in an amount not to exceed $117,400. This project was included in the approved 2021-2022 budget as amended on the 26th of October. The staff recommendation is to approve a resolution awarding a contract with Transportation Solutions, Inc. to update the transportation element of the city's comprehensive plan in an amount not to exceed $117,400 and documenting the professional services procurement procedures. I just want to add that the city has a 2024 deadline for updating our comprehensive plan, and that's where we will take the countywide planning policies that once are ratified, and we have to work those policies into our existing plan. One of the biggest pieces of the comprehensive plan is our transportation element. And this is one of the areas where we don't have in-house transportation planning and modeling folks to help us with this aspect of the plan. Assuming that I can hire a replacement for Carrie, who is leaving the city, we can do most of the other tasks in-house with the exception of some of the utilities work, which is already underway through the Public Works Department. So this is the one piece where we really need that consultant to help us provide technical expertise and update the city's model and look at our growth and employment numbers going forward and help refine the transportation improvement program and make sure that we're identifying all of the needed projects to support growth into the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Rose Pepe.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt a resolution approving a contract with Transportation Solutions, Inc. to update the transportation element of the city's comprehensive plan in an amount not to exceed $117,400 and documenting the professional services procurement procedures.
And was that you, Scott? Did someone?
I think it was.
Fred.
Oh, it was Fred. Okay, I'm sorry. I looked away for a moment. So is there any discussion on this resolution approving the contract with TSI? Councilman Diener?
So I can understand how this might be a little confusing for people who are just reading this or reading this for the first time. So I thought I would take a moment and just explain some of the core elements of this. Again, this goes into our 8-year comp plan due in 2024, but it's a 20-year planning document. So on page 1 of 5 of the scope of work or page 228 of the packet, there's 2 really core features that we're talking about for work, and I'll read those. One task is to provide an update of the city's existing travel demand model to forecast future traffic generated by the city's updated housing and employment forecasts. So that's essentially a supply and demand analysis. And then on the next page, the other is a level of service evaluation. So this task provides for the update of a citywide intersection operations model to provide level of service calculations for all collector and arterial intersections citywide. So again, that's an intersection evaluation. So these are critical analyses that are required for our transportation improvement program.
Thank you. And again, going back to the employment and population numbers that will be determined here in the next few months. They all interweave and they're all important. Is there any other discussion about this particular contract or the work they will be doing? Seeing none, we will take a vote. And the motion on the floor, which has been seconded, is to adopt a resolution approving a contract with Transportation Solutions, Inc. to update the transportation element of the city's comprehensive plan in an amount not to exceed $117,400 and documenting the professional services procurement procedures. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. And the next business item we have is adoption of a resolution accepting a multifamily property tax exemption agreement for the Plisco Apartments as sought by Cedar Cove LLC. And again, Nick, this is yours.
All right, thank you. In 2016, the City Council adopted Ordinance 23-16, which created Chapter 3.48 of the Municipal Code to further the city's goals of encouraging additional affordable housing in urban centers. This chapter was recently updated to better incentivize the types of development sought by the city and to tighten the requirements for affordable housing. The map of designated residential targeted areas for eligible projects was most recently updated in 2020. The multifamily property tax exemption program exempts certain new, converted, or rehabilitated multifamily developments from ad valorem property taxation for either 8 or 12 years from issuance of the certificate of the exemption, depending on whether the project will include at least 20% affordable housing. The city has received an application from Disney and Associates, subsequently amended to reference the new applicant owner, Cedar Cove LLC, for an MFTE agreement related to the construction of 57 new apartment units in 2 buildings on a vacant 1.98 acre site located in a designated target area adjacent to Plisco Lane and Mile Hill Road. The developer is seeking a 12-year tax exemption and intends to provide 20% of the units as affordable housing in accordance with POMC 3.48040.1C. The city attorney has prepared a multifamily housing limited property tax exemption agreement for signature by the city and Cedar Cove LLC to be approved by resolution. The staff recommendation is to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept and sign a multifamily housing limited property tax exemption agreement between the city and Cedar Cove LLC as presented.
Council, what's your pleasure? Councilman Pichardi.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept and sign a multifamily housing limited property tax exemption agreement between the city and Cedar Cove LLC as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilman Pichardi and a second by Councilman Lucarelli. Is there any discussion on this item? I'm assuming this went to land use.
Yes.
Okay.
It did, Mayor Pro Tem, and we're very appreciative of the fact that people are starting to come forward and applying for the tax exemption so we get more affordable housing in our city.
Thank you. Councilman Pichardi.
I was just going to reiterate what Jay just said. It's just nice to see that this tool that we created back in 2016 continues to attract people so we can, realize the fact that affordable housing is a big issue in our community. It's nice to see that these continue to address that issue.
Thank you, Councilman Diener.
I also wanted to show or state that it shows the city has skin in the game on affordable housing, and we're not just talking the talk. I think one of the questions people may have is, what does affordable housing mean in this particular instance? And so if folks could bear with me for a moment, I'll explain what that means. It's on page 239 of the packet. So what this means is a minimum of 20% of all residential units in the development shall be rented for at least 10% below fair market value or fair market rent for 12 years to tenants whose household annual income is at or below 40% of median family income for housing units in congregate residences or small efficiency dwelling units, at or below 65% of median family income for 1-bedroom units, at or below 75% of median family income for 2-bedroom units, and at or below 80% of median family income for 3-bedroom and larger units.
Councilman Chang.
I was also impressed that on page 241 of the packet, it does detail that the applicant or developer will be creating an annual report, basically explaining the rents that they're charging and the number of under market rents. The things that though I was still mulling over was, is 10% off market rate, is that enough to make it more affordable? And that's a question I don't know, because I can see that they're aiming for people making a smaller percentage of the median family income, but are they charging them a proportionate rate for that? Because 10% less, I don't know if that's fair or not. It's certainly less. And then another way of looking at this, though, is, and I want to thank Nick for helping give me some guidance on this. I was wondering, how much is the city giving up in revenue over that 12-year period? What is the possible property tax that we wouldn't be getting? And I think one figure out there is it might be 800,000. So if you think that that's maybe like 80,000 per year, you're wondering, well, is the rental assistance, if you think of the discount, less than 80,000? And, of course it is. But the other part of that question is that, is the city making up the revenue by having additional residents who would be presumably shopping in the city? So it's not an easy equation, and I don't know the answer to this. And I think the intent is certainly there, and I think it could be helpful. But I guess the only other question that I didn't think of this afternoon was, do we know that the developer would not be building this project if they did not get this tax exemption?
If that's a question for me, I think it's really hard to say. I think that a lot of housing advocates throughout the region are looking at how, there's a variety of challenges with housing, but ultimately it comes down to a housing supply issue. And, there are people who argue that just building more houses, especially higher end units, isn't moving the needle on housing affordability. But you also have to consider that there are existing apartments in the city. And if somebody has an opportunity to move out of an old, dated apartment into something that's new, that's roughly comparable for rent, it's potentially freeing up units in other complexes where they may have to lower the rent to attract residents. But it's really hard to tell. And your number 800,000, that was a number I provided to Councilmember Chang earlier based on our first certificate that we issued to the Overlook apartments a couple of years ago. So we determined at that time that the 8-year or the 12-year exemption for the Overlook apartments based on that the valuation of that building was about 800,000. This is a little bit bigger project, not significantly bigger. So it's probably a little bit more than 800,000, but I don't have the actual building valuation at this time. So it's hard to say. I mean, we have a lot of interest in building apartments in the city generally right now, and we tried to refocus the incentive to really encourage certain types of development or affordable housing. As we wrote this agreement, this is the first agreement we've written under the new code. This still seems like a little bit of a complicated way to come up with what rent should be charged. And I almost wonder if we just need to adopt a table that says these are the rents by unit size, and they have to be available to a certain income threshold rather than having to compare the cost of market rate units in the complex to the cost of affordable units. I think this probably could be simplified, and especially given that we're a small jurisdiction, it's hard for us to go through and audit these things every year. We get the reports and we look and make sure that the reports are correct, but we don't have an accounting team who's going through and double checking rent applications and the tenant pay stubs to verify that they're in that income group. So it's something that we're still learning about, and this is our third agreement in total for the city.
Councilman Chang had asked, and I'll just rephrase it, but the rents will be at least 10% below the market rate. That is, my question is that a state rule that we came up with that 10%, or was that something, we decided ourselves?
That is something we decided ourselves, and we modeled our code after the Seattle MFTE program, which right after we adopted something modeled after theirs, they went and changed their program. So I haven't heard from Seattle what they liked or didn't like about the old framework that they had, but that was something that we chose.
Okay, so this is the framework that we have, and this Cedar Cove LLC is wanting to build their building with the parameters that we have in our code at this time. Okay, and again, Scott, I'll call on you just a second, But the idea here is to create affordable housing. And it's not easy for developers to create affordable housing when they can sell and build market rate and make more money. So if we're going to move the needle on affordable housing, we have to have incentives there. We have to have, we have to have skin in the game also. The city of Port Orchard does to make this happen. Councilman Diener.
I wanted to say that I'm intrigued by the idea of looking at setting a annual rental rates. I presume that would be annual. We'd have to look at that. And then Fred, you raised a number of good points. Is 10% the right number? But one of the reasons to upsell this is that, and maybe it was mentioned, I don't recall hearing it, but we also then get the taxation value on these real property improvements after 12 years. So
right.
Don't want to forget that.
Right. Councilman Cicciardi.
I was going to say, to add to that, right, if you look at, and we were just dealing with this the last couple of weeks when we were looking at our different revenue streams, right, sales tax is significant to the city of Port Orchard. And so also by having more people in our community, maybe the lack of property tax is being offset by the addition of sales tax.
Is there any further discussion? I just flipped over the motion. So if there's no further discussion, we will be voting on the motion to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept and sign a multifamily housing limited property tax exemption agreement between the city and Cedar Cove LLC as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Is there anyone opposed?
Nay.
So let the record show that there were 5 yeas and 1 nay. Okay, moving on down our agenda, we will give Mr. Bond a break. And our next agenda item is to adopt a resolution accepting the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee's recommendation for the 2022 funding allocation. And Clerk Reinerson, I believe this is your item.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. So on October 28, 2021, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee heard presentations from applicants requesting funds for 2020, as well as discussed the applications. And as a reminder, the chair of that committee is Councilmember Rosa Pepe. Mrs. Howell's Bed and Breakfast, Lorraine is also on that committee. Marissa with Red Lion, Beth Javins with Visit Kitsap, and Kathy Garcia with the Port of Bremerton were all part of that committee. At that committee meeting, they discussed the following. They feel that the events happening in Port Orchard, specifically downtown, is real important for the city. They understand that we need to make sure that the funding for marketing, the marketing aspect of it is to ensure that we are getting others here. And then they would like to reconvene in February 2022 to check the fund balance and hopefully be in a position to allow for the applicants that were not fully funded be given the opportunity to receive additional funds, as well as consider any new applications at that time. So with that, the committee is recommending that the council approve the following funding applications. From South Kitsap Chamber of Commerce for marketing and operation of events, they requested $2,000. The committee recommends $2,000. South Kitsap Chamber of Commerce for tourism marketing, they requested $15,800. The committee is recommending $13,430. Did I say 13,430? That's what I meant if I can say it. Okay. Fathoms of Fund for marketing and operations of events, they requested $29,114. The committee's recommending $25,096. Kitsap Mustang Club for marketing and operations of events requested $2,500, and the committee is recommending $2,500. Port Orchard Bay Street Association for marketing and operations of events, they requested $22,035. The committee is recommending $19,079. Port Orchard Bay Street Association for Tourism Marketing. They requested $10,700 and the committee's recommending $9,095. Port Orchard Historical Theater Foundation for marketing and operations of an event. They requested $2,500 and the committee is recommending $2,500. For the Sydney Museum and Arts Association, regarding marketing and operations of events and tourism marketing of downtown, they requested $5,000 and the committee's recommending $5,000. Visit Kitsap for marketing and operations of events. They requested $2,500 and the committee is recommending $2,500. Visit Kitsap for tourism marketing requested $18,000 and the committee is recommending $15,300. So of the total $113,649 requested, the committee fully allocated $100,000. With that, staff recommends adoption of the resolution approving the lodging tax recommendations for 2020 as presented.
And Councilman Rosa Pepe.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt a resolution adopting the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee's recommendation for the 2022 funding allocation as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there a discussion? Councilman Rosa Pepe.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back. First of all, there was one for the Saints Car Club for $3,500 that was allocated at $3,500. I think we missed that.
Sorry.
The other thing, that was fine. The other thing was that we have a very healthy fund balance. The council had allocated $100,000. We held to that target. Like I said, the committee would like to come back in February and take a look, depending how things are going with COVID and moving forward. We're very excited about the number of events that were talked about. We had 11 applications, which I think is the highest we've had in a while. And so we think people were very positive about getting things going for the summer, with the realization that we may still be in a little bit of a hold. But again, very positive. So, I'm hoping that the council will approve this as requested.
Thank you. Councilman Chang.
Yes, I saw with interest that there is one organization that I'm not familiar with. Can you tell us a little more about the Port Orchard Historic Theater Foundation? Which theater is that associated with, or which group of theaters, I guess?
That one is for the formerly known as Dragonfly, which I think is now known as the Polaris. They are looking at having an event, a kickoff event. It will depend on how far they get with the theater. They're very optimistic, but it is one they just wanted to put an application in as opposed to not being able to move forward down the road should they get where they want it to go.
Councilman Kichardi, were you going to make a comment?
Yeah, I did. I think the committee's done a great job, working within the parameters of the subject matter. Should we get into next year and see, and really for future years, a lot of the names of these events have been around for many, many years, and it's fantastic. I agree with the 3 bullet points that lead the staff report and the importance to our community. But for us to continue to find ways to promote the advent of new events, I don't think that maybe the perpetual funding of these types of events is probably best for the ongoing and growth of this overall fund and the growth of our economy in Port Orchard. And so I would just encourage the committee to think of ways to continue to spread the news. I would love to see for us going from 11 applications to 40 applications.
And I'm just going to chime into that in that I fully support them reconvening the committee in February and opening it up to new applicants. I think that's very important that be done. Is there any other discussion? Councilman Diener.
I'm trying to lower my hand here. I also wanted to thank staff and all the people who were involved for a job well done. I also like the 3 bullet points up front, and I'm also intrigued by the idea that we could spread the wealth here a little bit in the future. So good work, everybody.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we will be voting on a motion to adopt a resolution adopting the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee's recommendation for the 2022 funding allocations as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, the resolution passes with unanimous consent.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving on down the agenda, we have completed all of our business items. So we will move on down to the reports from council members or committee members or council committees and economic development tourism. Sean, that's you.
Yeah, we were to meet here on Monday of this week, but had a lack of agenda items. And so our next meeting will be the second Monday of December, which will be December 13th, 9:30 a.m.
Thank you. And utilities, did you meet this evening, Cindy?
No, as a matter of fact, we had the same situation. Our next meeting will be the second Tuesday of December, which is December 14th.
Okay. And finance has not met. We will be meeting on November 16th. Transportation has not met since our last meeting either. So our next scheduled meeting is November 23rd. And I would also let council know that at our work study next week, we will be having a presentation from the Transportation Department. I think you will find that all very interesting. And chimes and lights. Cindy, do you have anything on that?
Yes, we met and we discussed how to move forward with the event. We were waiting for the approval of the event application, and that was just approved. Basically, I believe that was yesterday, it was approved. And so we're moving forward now with the revised event, with having the slow moving traffic going through. The route was adjusted a little bit to work out better, moving closer to the water near the marina office. So it seems like everything is a go. We're now just starting our advertising campaign, and we'll be seeing some ads that's starting this week. Janine and Brandy have been working hard at getting more information out. And right now we're promoting our trees, and you've all heard from me. Thank you very much. We are down to just 9 trees that need sponsorship. So we're really pleased with that. We actually only have 55 trees now that 3 planters have been destroyed. But we're moving forward. The trees downtown, I think, look beautiful just in the planters. And we have like 3 weeks to try to turn this town into a wonder. And we have so many entities that are working very hard to do that. Really thanking Kitsap Bank, the Port of Bremerton, and all the businesses that are working so hard to get decorated in time. So it should be a really fun event. Everybody, you have to get in your cars 5 to 8 o'clock on December 4th and drive through the town multiple times.
Thank you. Councilman Rosa Pepe, do you have a comment?
I did. Besides the fact that it's really looking festive downtown, would you please let us know what the council tree is, since I have the decorations, and we can go get that tree decorated when we get the okay.
You bet.
And I'm happy to help with that effort.
Yeah, and I will send that confirmation to everyone. But I can tell you also that it's tree 46.
Okay.
And then I'll need the map.
I'll forward that to you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rosa Pepe, have we had a land use meeting?
We reported on that last time, and we're scheduled on the 17th. I do have a question for Nick, and that is, when is Carrie's last day?
Well, that was going to be in my department report, but I can tell you Friday is her last day before she moves on and takes the job with the Department of Commerce.
Thank you.
And Jay, do you have an additional lodging tax advisory report or?
No, that was it. I really appreciate everybody moving forward. I want to say that although we had 11 applications, that is for a lot more than just 11 events. A lot of them for Fathom of Fun and Bay Street Association covers numerous events. But I do agree, Sean, that we need to bang the drum a little bit more and see what else we can bring into town and move forward. So thank you.
And Cindy, do we have anything from Sewer Advisory?
We did meet and the budget was presented. It did pass, but we will have, I think, a presentation coming from SQURF to do an official vote on their budget.
Okay. So I believe that's all of our committee meetings. So we will go to outside agencies. And I will report that the Peninsula Regional Transportation Planning Organization, the Peninsula RPTO, we had our annual legislative forum last week, and it was a very, very productive meeting. I was very pleased with the format. It was a Zoom format, but it was very conversational, and we had 4 legislators there. We had 2 from the Transportation Committee, Mike Chapman out of the 24th and Dan Griffey out of the 35th. We also from the 24th had Representative Theringer, who is chair of the House Capital Budget Committee. And we had Senator Rolfes from the 23rd, who chairs the Senate Ways and Means Committee, which means she does the budget work for the Senate. So we had some we had legislators there that were very in tune to the issues that we brought up. We had a very meaningful back and forth dialogue. We did, all 4 of the legislators that were there were supportive of items that were on our legislative agenda, not necessarily our money asks, but particularly the Transportation Benefit District, extending the sales tax by a vote of the people. Right now you get you can do that twice for a total of 20 years. And the proposal is to have that, I don't know if it's indefinite, but beyond the 20 years with a vote of the people. So they were anyway, it was a really good meeting. I was very pleased to attend and enjoyed the conversation with the legislators. With that said, Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council, their legislative reception is scheduled for December 2nd. Again, it will be on Zoom. And there is a 5:30 meeting for newly electeds or any of our members that would like a refresher as to the role of KRCC and PSRC and the RPTO and legislative issues. And there will be input from the Association of Washington Cities and the Association of Counties. So that pre-meeting for an hour is always educational. And then the actual interaction with the legislators starts at 6:30. So if you would like to attend, please let Brandy know and she will get you registered. The other thing I wanted to talk about with KRCC, we spoke a little bit when we ratified the countywide planning policies. In this next year, 2022, is a very important, has very important work plan for KRCC. It will focus on the land use side with the population and employment numbers and distributing them county-wide. And then there's also the federal transportation funding. Both activities have the expectation of being completed by June. So the first half of the year will be very busy. And it's going to be, in my opinion, important for all council members to keep tabs on both of those processes. They will definitely affect the city of Port Orchard. Those population and employment numbers, those have hard dollar meanings to us, because once they're established and we say we're going to take X number of growth in population and employment, we have to plan infrastructure to that. And as we heard earlier in the, when we approved the TSI contract to do the transportation element of the comprehensive plan, they're waiting for those numbers to do a lot of their modeling. So those numbers are very critical, and it's important that we're all aware of how this is moving forward with all the jurisdictions in the county. I will say that I think there will be robust conversation, and I believe each of the various jurisdictions are fairly set in how they think the process should go. So I know that Nick and Mark will do a good job for us in keeping our interest first and foremost in the work they do, but I think it's going to be incumbent on all of us to stay abreast of that process as it moves forward. There was a presentation to the KRCC Executive Board by the consultant Clay White, who helped with the countywide planning policies. He will also be facilitating some of the population and employment work. And he gave a nice presentation. And if you would like, I would see if Nick could bring that to a work study, or at least to land use. Or we can just provide it to you. It's in a PowerPoint presentation. It may just have some information there that may pique your interest. That is all that I have with those two organizations, KRCC and the RPTO. As far as PSRC is concerned, we are meeting tomorrow on the, again, federal transportation funding project selection task force, and we will be finalizing some of our recommendations to move forward to the Transportation Policy Board. So anyway, that's what's going on with the outside agencies that I'm involved with. Moving down our agenda, the next item is the report from the mayor. And I believe his report is that it's very nice to be able to take a vacation for a couple of weeks, and he will see us at our next council meeting. And now we have a report from the department heads. Nick, you've been talking all night. Do you want to continue?
Sure. I had a couple of announcements. We touched on one, and that is that our long-range planner, Krcc, is leaving us effective Friday. She has accepted a job with the Department of Commerce, and I just wanted to thank her for all her work. She's been a huge asset, and if I had known she was leaving going into the budget process, I probably would have had to ask for 3 FTEs to cover all that she does for us. So hopefully we will find a good replacement, but I've been talking to the other directors at the county and the other cities, and it is hard to find people these days. My next announcement is that we were successful in hiring a public works permit clerk. Malia Ritzman started on Wednesday, and she came to the DCD from Kitsap County Courts. And so if you happen to be in our building, you will probably see her or hear her answering our phones. And finally, for building permits in 2021, we are up to 123 permits issued for new single-family homes as of the end of October. We have 17 additional permits ready to issue sitting at the counter, and another 70 that are pending review before the end of this year. Our review times are currently at 8 to 12 weeks for most things, so it's a little bit behind our current goal. We are at 8 to 12 weeks using our consultants, and they're just also backlogged. And so I think that unfortunately this is about the best we can do right now without going significantly into the consulting realm for reviews. I will continue monitoring this, and if it gets worse, we may have to start sending more work out. But it's certainly busy, and I'm very thankful to have Angela, our new building official. She's been here for going on 4 months now and is doing a great job. And that concludes my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, Chief Brown, do you have anything for us tonight?
I do. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to let the council know that next week we are attending the WASPIC convention where we anticipate getting our accreditation. So we'll be able to bring that award to everybody. And it's like I have said before in previous meetings, it's a pretty big deal. We do have another officer attending the academy beginning on Monday. So we appreciate the support on that. We finished our final round of interviews for new hires. We'll start back up again in January. I will have those results next week. And just so everyone is aware, the PD is still open for phone calls, but we're in the middle of some audits and we're short some staff. So the front doors are closed, but we are still available for phone calls. Other than that, things are just humming along downstairs. So again, thanks everyone for your support.
Great, thank you. Noah, Mr. Crocker, do you have anything for us tonight?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Brandy?
I do not have anything either.
Okay. And Charlie, our attorney?
Nothing to report this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. I thank all of the department heads and thank you for being here this evening. We appreciate it. We are now at the second citizen comment period. We would ask you to please limit your comments to 3 minutes for any items that you wish to talk to us about. You will do the same procedure that we had at the beginning of the meeting, and that is if you raise your hand through Zoom, our city clerk will let you into the meeting and you'll be allowed to give your testimony. Brandy, do you see anyone that wishes to give testimony this evening?
Yes, I have a handful of members of the public that wish to speak, and I will allow the first one to talk at this time, and that will be Sean.
Thank you. Sean, go right ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, members of the council. We know who runs the theater. We know who is behind the Bay Street Association. We know who is behind you. If you want to funnel taxpayer money to this individual, it stinks of corruption. And if you wish to distance yourself from accusations of corruption, I would suggest you distance yourself from the person who got you elected. Failing to do so stinks, smells. We are watching, we are noting, we are not going away. None of you will ever run unopposed again. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else, Brandy, in the audience that wishes to give testimony?
Yes, I have a member of the public named Rob. I'm going to allow that person to speak at this time.
Thank you. Rob, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. I was just listening to the meeting tonight and you guys discussed some of the developer tax discounts, and just listening to Scott and Mr. Krcc already talked about that a little bit. I have a little bit of concern about that. And that would be that, you know, we continue to give these developers these discounts through opportunity zones and through these multifamily tax incentives, which in theory is great. But the problem I'm seeing is now we've got a shortfall in the city. And to Mr. Cucciardi's point, you're hoping that sales tax revenues make up the difference. And that's really concerning that we don't know how that difference is going to be made up. It'd be nice to know if you have a better handle and touch on how that will be made up, because those ultimately are taking away from our tax base here. You know, the city, it's a little disingenuous for the city to say you have skin in the game. You don't have skin in the game, the taxpayer does. And so it's your responsibility to make sure that those are not only being spent wisely, but the monies that are coming in are being used appropriately. And if those are going to be shortfalled by these incentives for developers, we need to figure out how that's going to be covered. And I'm hoping that you guys are thinking about that and have a plan for that, because that's a big deal And with the development coming in through a lot of the multifamily that's being proposed, which is good, we could have big shortfalls if we're not being conscious of those shortfalls coming from the tax incentives that we're providing to these developers. Ultimately, they're winning and the city's losing out, and that's not really fair to the citizens. So I'd like to see you guys look into that a little better so we have a better answer for how we make up that difference, because right now, I don't see that you have an answer for that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else? Clerk Reinerson.
Yes, there is one more person, Heidi. And okay, sorry, there was a different message on there. So, okay, so she is allowed to speak.
There. Oh, now you can hear me, right?
Yes, you have, Heidi, you may speak and you have up to 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I would like to talk about how, I feel like there's an echo. It's not that easy to find the agenda when you go to look for it. And I've had a couple other people and my neighbors can't find it that easy. So I think it should be a little bit more easier to find the agenda. And then two, that $5,000 too for the historical theater down here. I already know that they've already reached out to the community, and I know someone personally that is who works down here that is given $4,000 for their commission to that. So now they're reaching out to city council to give them more money. I kind of have a question on that. And then this, another thing for this walkway, I would like a breakdown how much that's going to cost for us constituents and the community, because they're going to do a barrier. They're going to go along the waterfront and then they're crossing over. I just feel like that is going to cost way more than, you know, having what you're going to get money, whatever. I mean, I just want a breakdown because I literally believe it's going to cost us a lot more. I do not know why you don't go down the right-hand side, cross over, and go along the right-hand side. And you're going to put a barrier for a walkway in front of Whiskey Gulch and take away their parkway. Makes no sense to me. And I think we need a community gathering and talk about the design and the map of it all. And you guys are leaving us in the dark on this. And I feel that is so wrong for city council. They're not being, you know, business friendly. Or you said you guys want to be more transparent. You're not being transparent. And so that is a big deal to me.
And Mr. Jones is alongside of you.
Thank you for your comments. I will say, just Heidi, just so you know, you can contact the city clerk's office. Anyone can. And I think it's even automated, but they will send you the agenda by email 5 days or before the Friday before every council meeting. The agendas are very easily found on the front page of our website. But you can have them personally sent to you, which many people do. So that just contact the city clerk's office and they can make that happen. Brandy, is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak?
Yes, there is another person that has their hand raised and I'll allow them to talk, and that will be Randy.
Okay, Randy, you have 3 minutes. Randy, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I want to congratulate Mr. Pepe on winning another term as city councilman. I want to compliment Jay for not wanting to use eminent domain, as he has stated in his interview on Bay Street Association's platform. He said that they never voted for eminent domain, which is true, except for Mrs. Beck Ashby. She voted, and it's on record, to take people's homes. So I'm assuming, as the citizens should, means you would not destroy the existing homes and businesses of our citizens that have begged not to leave. I watched Arlene Williams cry in the city council meeting while Beck Ashby watched, then voted yes to use eminent domain. Mr. Dorsey said to myself and my neighbors in the first house that mitigation is not needed. Mitigation has an incredible financial value. The city of Seattle paid $10 million to the tribes for mitigation to rebuild its existing seawall. So I've called fraud on that. Mitigation exists here. In the event the city were to use eminent domain and the contract were to be awarded to Steve Seago, your supporter, who has the only mitigation company that just conveniently opened up in Port Orchard, I would never stop relentless pursuit. I would follow you in all your political aspirations from here. If Mr. Dorsey is correct, the city has not sought undamaging alternatives to their bike path. And the next question I have is, now that I hear it tonight, I can't believe my ears, that we are giving Steve Seago $5,000 for his Dragonfly Theater that he just purchased. That's outrageous, considering he supported the 4 council members, and now he's getting paid back. It's disgusting, and it does smell of corruption. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Clerk Reinerson, is there anyone else in the audience that is wanting to give testimony this evening?
Not at this time.
Thank you. We will close the public hearing or the public comments section. And now we will go to the good of the order. And I see several council people have their hands up. I too would like to give comments for the good of the order. We will start with Councilman Chang, then Councilman Kichardi, then Rosa Pepe, and then myself. Councilman Chang.
Yes, I would just like to thank all the people who filed to run. It certainly made it an interesting election. And I think the voter will always benefit when there is a choice at the election. I would like to add that there is something called the Public Disclosure Commission. And if you do the big filing, as I do, you can see all the contributions and all the expenditures that I've had in my campaign. And you cannot find a single dollar from Steve Seago because he has not contributed to my campaign. Thank you.
Councilman Kichardi.
Yeah, just a point of correction. We had 2 people just talk about contributions from the LTAC to that historic theater. They referenced $5,000 that they asked for and received $2,500. I just wanted to make sure that it was reported correctly.
Thank you. And Mr. Rosa Pepe, you had indicated before you wanted to speak.
That was in error, but being allowed to, I would like to make the remark, as long as I'm not overruled by our legal person, that my campaign was solely self-funded, and just to set the record straight.
Thank you. And Councilman Diener.
Thank you. I also wanted to point out that my books are available. I was the only one that contributed to my campaign. But I also wanted to iterate what Fred pointed out. It makes it a better campaign or election when there's more than one person running for a seat. And I also wanted to point out that I think there were some things that everybody agreed upon, which was we can do better. And I've asked that Councilmember Fred and Councilmember Jay talk about what they heard about at our work study. And I'm going to ask that we have an agenda item where we can talk about what parts we can do better about. I, for one, in the end, almost 1,700 doorbells were rang. And that's why I have a full-time job. But I'd like to talk a lot about what I heard in talking to many people in many different parts of the city. So I look forward to that meeting next week.
Thank you, Scott. And then the comments I wanted to make are personal to myself because Mr. Jones has said this on multiple council meetings. And what I want to say is this city council, since I have sat on it, has never had a vote on eminent domain. There was if you were to look at the minutes from the meeting that Mr. Jones is referring to, the question was specifically asked if eminent domain was part of the motion, and it was not. We have never taken a vote on eminent domain. That particular meeting and I believe it was in the fall of 2014, and I was the only council member who voted against the motion that was made. And I did it for very specific reasons. One is the motion was to move forward with the path and accepting federal dollars and start that process to acquire right-of-way and the homes that are over the water. I voted no because we did not know where the construction dollars were coming from at that time. And there was also conversation about deviating the path. And we did not know yet if the path could be deviated. So I had very specific reasons for voting no to that motion. I made them public that day, and they were also accounted for in the article that was in the Bremerton Sun. And unfortunately, some of our citizens only read headlines. They do not read the actual article. I just wanted to clarify that for the public, because not all of the information that you hear from our citizens is as accurate as it could be. So with that, is there anything else for the good of the order? Hearing none, we will close this evening's council meeting. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.